Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Pastor Kim Risedorph. Welcome to this worship service. Whether you're new to Asbury or familiar with Asbury, welcome. I pray that you feel inspired and changed by what we do together in worship this morning. And after worship in the fellowship hall, there will be coffee and bagels and the chance to sign up for opportunities to grow in faith and to serve others with love. At the same time, in between worship services, there'll be an Easter egg hunt for the children. And if it's raining, our very nimble children's ministry will have moved that Easter egg hunt inside. Today, this morning, we celebrate resurrection. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
And I'm not just preaching to the choir on this one. The resurrection is about Jesus, but the amazing good news is it's not limited to Jesus. The truth of resurrection is that God's presence is alive in this world. The kingdom has come. God is here with us. There are signs of resurrection all over creation. Everywhere you look, if you're aware, you will see that the little seeds that we dismiss as insignificant have within them new life. That's the truth and the sign of resurrection. The good news is too wondrous to ignore and too persistent to deny. And so today we celebrate God's presence alive here with us and within us. And we begin worship as we always do by bringing in the light of Christ. The light is a reminder of resurrection truth. Christ's presence abides here with us. And so we use this time to prepare our hearts and our minds for worship. As the light comes in, I invite you to inhale and exhale and let yourself be fully present, fully alert in this celebration of resurrection. As that light comes in, let it travel into this room, into our hearts, our minds, our bodies, so that we become the light of God's love in the world. May it be so for us. Let us worship. This morning we read the story of resurrection from the Gospel of John. And right at the beginning, right from the start, we know something has happened. Something unexpected is at work in the world. Hear now the beginning of the resurrection story from John chapter 20.
Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdelene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb.
Empty tomb, not expected. It surprised Mary. And the truth of resurrection is that it shatters our expectations and our stereotypes. With resurrection, Jesus is no longer a victim of violence, infighting, hatred. Jesus is victorious because God's love is the most powerful, abiding presence in the world. God's love abides forever, is stronger than anything. And that's what we celebrate on Easter morning, God's love alive in us. And we are to be alive with God's love in the world. And every time we hear this story, we have a choice to make. Is it a story that we'll listen to, nod, and say, good story, I like it, it makes me feel good? Or are we going to be part of living the resurrection in the world? The power of God's presence in the world happens when we are alive with God's love. And so, like Mary, we need to make a journey towards the place of transformation. And so as part of worship, we invite you to take that flower that you are holding and to bring it up to one of these 3 crosses and to help be the process of transformation. There's something about moving forward and engaging in resurrection living that changes us, makes us carry it in a different way. and it's part of worship. So while this is happening, we'll be singing the songs of faith. And I invite you to maintain an attitude of worship as you come forward singing the songs of faith with your flower, perhaps repeating to yourself, Christ is alive. Christ is alive in me. Look what we did together. There is nothing to stop us from going forward into the week ahead, being signs of resurrection transformation. And we prepare for that by continuing to hear the story from John chapter 20, after Mary arrives at the empty tomb.
Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look in the tomb, and she saw 2 angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken my Lord away, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" Supposing him to be a gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away."
No one expected an empty tomb, and in trying to make sense of it, what was Mary's first response to the unexpected, to the surprise? She looked for someone to blame. She immediately looked for the worst case scenario in order to explain the empty tomb. They had done something to the body, be it grave robbers or Roman authorities or the religious authorities of her time. She went to the worst case scenario first to explain the resurrection. I so get that. It is so human. When faced with the unexpected, the unwanted, we immediately, at least, I could go from 0 to 60 and give you the worst case scenario. I'm so good at it, I could list it as a skill on my resume. And now's the time for you to do something empathetic and say, "Oh, you're not the only one." Because maybe you do the same thing too. Maybe your first reaction to something unexpected, to a change in plans, to a diagnosis, to darkness or despair, is to spell out the worst case scenario. It's human. We do that. And resurrection reminds us that right in the midst of darkness, despair, and even death, God is at work in the world. Resurrection living is about remembering we are alive with God's love in the world because God is alive in us. And it takes practice. I've been experimenting with something this week, and if you take nothing else home from worship this morning, take this practice and experiment with it during the week as you face the unexpected, the unknown, the change in plans. I've been saying to myself, God is here. As a mantra, as a prayer, I've been trying to repeat it over and over to myself. God is here. Whether I'm praying for one of you, I'm saying God is here. When I'm reading the news or I'm listening to the news, whatever I'm doing, to say that God is here. That's the power that transforms the world. And it still has the power to transform us today. We are to live with the awareness that God is here. Resurrection is not just an optional ending to the story or a happy ending. It's the bursting forth of an essential reality. God, the divine presence, is alive in this world and alive in us. Nothing can hinder God's presence from being alive in the world and alive in us. May it be so for us. And the story continues in the Gospel of John. Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord. And she told him that he had said these things to her. Something stands out to me in that, something that seems a little bit odd. The very first teaching from the risen Christ was, don't hold on to me. Don't cling to me. The very first teaching was that. You know, I take the Bible seriously, but I don't take it literally. And I think there might be something more than Mary being instructed to not hold on to Jesus' body. I think there's another meaning, perhaps, important to us as we become people of the resurrection. I think maybe the risen Christ is reminding her, don't cling to the way you might have known me or saw me or been with me in the past. Allow inspiration to take hold and show you a bigger way of living with the Christ's presence, with God's presence inside you. Don't cling to everything that was true in the past, but be open to the inspiration of resurrection. Because you see, that line, don't cling to me, is consistent with all the teachings of Jesus throughout his life. We don't have records of Jesus saying, worship me. We have evidence, we have passage after passage of Jesus saying to us, his followers, follow me. And there's a big difference between worshiping Jesus and following Jesus. And actually, the church hasn't always been a help in making this distinction. Because we use the same word for Jesus when he lived on earth and Jesus after the resurrection. It might be helpful to use different words for that. Jesus lived here on earth and fully embodied God's presence, taught us, challenged us, showed us how to do the same. And I'm a follower of Jesus because of that. I am inspired, I am overwhelmed by the way he lived his life. And yet when Jesus left this earth, when his body left this earth, the good news of resurrection is God didn't leave. God's Spirit, the one that Jesus drew our attention to, is still alive. That's what we celebrate in resurrection. God's Spirit, alive here in us. When we put Jesus on a pedestal and worship him, faith becomes a spectator sport. Because we can't hope. When we worship someone, we know that they do things we cannot do. But when we take seriously the truth of resurrection, the teaching that Jesus gave us, that we are alive with God's love because God is the power at work in our goodness, then we are participating and living the resurrection. We join Jesus in embodying God's presence here on earth. If it was about worshiping Jesus, we would be part of the Society of Jesus of Nazareth. But we're not. That's not what we call ourselves. We call ourselves Christians. That is, followers of the Christ, believers in the Christ presence, the risen Christ, the divine Spirit that is forever abiding in us. And I don't know about you, but I forget that. I'll forget that between now and fellowship time, at least once. So I think we all need practices, rituals, commitments in order to remember that Christ is alive. God's presence abides here with us, and we are alive with God's love. I need practices like coming to worship, so the scriptures, songs, hymns, and prayers remind me God abides here. I need a small group to offer me encouragement and hold me accountable. I need opportunities to serve others with love so that I too embody the Christ presence. I think we all need those reminders. It doesn't instantly make everything better, doesn't dispel darkness, despair, but it reminds us that in the midst of everything we face, God is here. It's enough to make us want to say, hallelujah, amen.